Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, everyone watching virtually and watching after the fact. We're going to do a pelvic floor health workshop today. So pelvic floor is like kind of a hot button topic right now. So it's no wonder that so many people showed interest in coming, and I appreciate that. This is going to be very surface level, okay? So this isn't going to be crazy in-depth because the pelvic floor can get really, really complex, really complicated. So, but we're going to keep it very basic, and this is going to be quick. I don't want this to be a lecture. I want you guys to like actually try some exercises at the end, try some movements. But this is more or less to give you all the tools to determine if you have an issue with the pelvic floor, if you need to go seek physical therapy, anything like that. So first, this is kind of what we're going to cover today. So what the pelvic floor is, how to tell if you have a dysfunction of the pelvic floor, and then what you can do to treat it and or prevent it if you do. Introduction. So my name is Michael. So I'm a physical therapist here in town. I'm a board certified specialist in orthopedics and then also a sports nutritionist. I just opened Physio Edge Physical Therapy in Falcon actually in November. So brand new clinic, trying to kind of change how physical therapy is viewed. I think there's a problem with the current physical therapy insurance-based model. So we started this company as a way to fix that and bring more quality care to Falcon and Peyton and surrounding areas too. So the caveat, that bottom bullet point, which I'm in the way of, I'm not a pelvic health specialist. So you can specialize in pelvic health as a physical therapist. I chose not to. However, in my studies of orthopedics and just all over, body, I just want to share what I've learned with you all so that you have kind of a basic knowledge of pelvic floor, okay? So with that being said, if anything that we do today makes you realize that, oh, like shit, I should probably go see a physical therapist for the pelvic floor, you can absolutely come see me. However, if you think like, oh, this is going to take some real work, like this is strictly pelvic floor, I would suggest seeing a pelvic floor specialist, and I can make recommendations. And so I have business cards. You guys can email me, text me, call me. And if you need a referral for an actual pelvic health specialist, I can provide that for you. So topic one, what is the pelvic floor? So who here has a pelvic floor?
You too.
Yes. Who here does not have a pelvic floor? Rooster has a pelvic floor. Yep. Everybody has a pelvic floor. Does anyone in here not know what the fuck the pelvic floor is? Everybody knows? Oh, okay. Okay. Good. So the pelvic floor, everyone, I think it's commonly misconstrued that it's a muscle, right? It's not. It's actually a whole region of your body. So it's the bony pelvic girdle. It's your genitalia. It's the muscles. It's vessels. It's nerves. It's an entire region of your body. The functions of it protect and support delicate organs, vessels, and nerves. That's the main function. It supports the weight of your upper body as you're sitting. So right now, all of your pelvic floors are working to support you and help keep you upright. As you're walking and standing, it's helping to transmit forces, transmit weight. And then it's a site for a lot of muscles and other soft tissues from the hip, spine, and abdominal wall to attach, okay? It also aids with the diaphragm in breathing. And then the International Continence Society has defined it as a compound structure that closes the bony pelvic outlet. Here's a picture of it. So spine, right? That's your vertebrae. That's the spinous process. These are the big hip bones. So that's the back. That's the front. This is your pelvic floor. All of this in one. And that's not including, obviously, some other vessels and structures that we're not going to talk about because, like I said, I'm not a pelvic health specialist. I think if we went into detail about a lot of the other functions of pelvic floor, like there's a lot, it can get awkward, okay? So we're not going to do that. And my mom's here, so. and my daughter. So, all right. So, yes. Yeah.
I think that everybody should be able to talk using the correct terminology and talk about these things, because putting that, it's that area stigma on it keeps people from seeking help.
That's true. You're right. And I think the reason I would be hesitant to go into a lot of detail is because I'm a young male therapist. And I have found in my experience that females, specifically older females, aren't as comfortable coming to me with this stuff as they would be seeing a female therapist. That's all.
I've seen two, and they were both females. So.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So,
Pieces is not specialized.
right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that stuff, though, if you want. And actually, we'll get into it later. All right, so big 5 functions, like I mentioned. So continence. And this is going to be a big piece of this presentation, actually. A very easy way to tell if you have something going on with your pelvic floor is if you have continence issues, right? Incontinence is one of the big indicators that you have a pelvic floor dysfunction, okay? But we'll talk about the different types of pelvic floor dysfunctions. Support of your organs, like I said, breathing, lumbopelvic motor control. So that is the relationship between your lumbar spine, low back, and your pelvis, and how they interact with each other and how they move together. And then sexual function. And I like this, it is the floor of the core. So I like to consider pelvic floor as part of the core. So if you're trying to strengthen your low back, if you have low back pain, which we can go into also, a big part of it is actually strengthening your pelvic floor, because as we'll see in a little bit, low back pain can be and it's actually on the handout that I provided you, low back pain is also a symptom of pelvic floor dysfunction. So how to tell if you have pelvic floor dysfunction, that's what PFD is. So most common reasons, underactive or weak pelvic floor muscles, and with this category, you will see incontinence. So that means you have a weak or underperforming, underactive pelvic floor muscles, or a pelvic organ prolapse. There are different ways to determine if you have that. A quick Google search can be alarming if you do the images. Overactive or tight pelvic floor muscles. So the symptoms of that would be pelvic pain, difficulty emptying your bladder or your bowels. So notice the difference. Underactive or weak, you're going to have incontinence. You're not going to have an issue initiating or emptying your bladder. If you have overactive or tight pelvic floor muscles, you'll have more difficulty initiating or emptying your bladder, okay? These are the categories of pelvic floor dysfunction. So you have bladder dysfunction, bowel dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, a prolapse, or just pelvic pain. So again, how do you know if you have it? Do you have a prolapse? And that would indicate a lack of the support function of the pelvic floor. Do you have incontinence, constipation, or pain? And with the incontinence, you have frequency issues. You have urgency, nocturia, which is having to urinate multiple times a night. Normal for anyone over 60, 65 is 2 times a night. Okay, if you're going more than 2 times a night, that could be a sign either you're drinking a shit ton of water right before bed, or you might have a pelvic floor dysfunction. And then stream changes as you're urinating. And then do you have low back pain? SIJ is sacroiliac joint. So this is the connection between your sacrum, tailbone, and your ilium, which are the big fan-shaped hip bones. Okay, so it's that kind of connection. Do you have issues with that, or a core weakness? Some interesting things to keep in mind. So pelvic floor dysfunction can affect the relationship between the low back and the pelvis and hips. So if you have, like I mentioned before, low back pain, hip tightness, it could be strictly the hip pain, the low back pain, the hip tightness, but it could also be a sign of pelvic floor dysfunction. And then spinal dysfunction, low back pain can affect continence. So you could actually just have strictly musculoskeletal low back pain, and that is causing a continence issue. So it's important to differentiate why you're having that issue. Is it truly a pelvic floor muscle dysfunction, or is it like a low back pain, a chronic condition that you've been dealing with? All right, some pearls. And these I like, and these are important to keep in mind. There's a big link between your abdominal core muscle weakness and pelvic floor muscle dysfunction. Studies have been done. I can pull it up at the end too to give you actual statistics, but I thought that would be super boring. But the majority of people, I want to say it was like 80 or 90% of people with pelvic floor dysfunction actually had core weakness, and also vice versa. Huge percentage of people with core weakness also have a pelvic floor dysfunction. So it's like I mentioned before, it's important to determine if you have overactive pelvic floor muscles, overactive or tight, meaning they're always on, or underactive/weak pelvic floor muscles. And then low back pain is equal to weak pelvic floor muscles as well. One interesting connection between pelvic floor and hips, tight hips equals tension or overactive pelvic floor, and then weak hips would mean lack of support and weak pelvic floor. Okay.
Pause for a second. Any questions so far?
True. Yeah, that's hard to tell because it could be. So there's a lot of muscles that contribute to the hip, right? That surround the hip. How to tell if you have weak hips would be if you have difficulty getting up out of a chair, if you have difficulty picking something up off the floor, like a deadlift movement, if you have knee pain, ankle pain, foot pain, low back pain, that could also be from weak hips. So hard to tell, but yeah, there are different tests you can do to see if you have weak hips. Yeah. Okay, good. You got strong hips.
Any other questions? So I've recently come to know that men can have pelvic floor issues too.
Absolutely.
And does that cause incontinence in men?
It can. Yep. 100%. And that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Men do have, it's obviously to a lesser extent because some of the contributing factors to pelvic floor dysfunction, which we didn't really mention, is the prevalence of pelvic floor muscle dysfunction actually increases with the more kids that you've had, right? The more births that you've had. So men don't have that issue, but men can absolutely still have pelvic floor muscle dysfunction. And yes, incontinence would be a sign of that for men. Okay, so yeah.
Given birth? Anyone been guilty of one of these? Yes. Weak pelvic floor.
Yeah, it's a crime that after you give birth, you don't get like a referral for physical therapy because
They don't even talk about it.
it's so much trauma to your body. No.
Having a C-section causes it too.
Well, what do they do with a C-section?
Well, they cut all your abdomen.
They cut all your ab muscles, right? You have multiple layers, like the six-pack muscle, and then you've got obliques, 2 layers of obliques, and then you've got a transverse abdominis. That's 4 layers of abdominal muscles that they cut through. And then they send you home like you should know what to do. It's wild to me and truly a crime. Anyways, so if you have pelvic floor dysfunction, how to treat it. So the knack. The knack is just telling yourself to squeeze before you sneeze, okay? So if this is an issue, if you have that kind of urge or stress incontinence, right? You're coughing, sneezing, lifting something up, and you get a little dribble. The knack is a good cue for you to remember to squeeze before you sneeze. I like to think of, so everyone here know what a Kegel is? Yeah? That's like the staple for pelvic floor treatment, right, is do a Kegel. But guess what? If you have overactive pelvic floor muscles, is a Kegel really going to help? No, because you're further turning on pelvic floor muscles that actually need to be relaxed. Correct. So I like to think about it as an elevator, okay? Or you're holding in a fart. One of the two. Either way. I think holding in a fart is easier for people. But if you think about it as an elevator, you're going to activate the pelvic floor muscles. You're thinking about the elevator coming up. And then as you relax, you're thinking about the elevator coming down, right? There's no movement. Your glute muscles, your abdominal muscles, none of that should turn on when you squeeze or activate your pelvic floor. So a true Kegel, you all should be doing it right now, and I should not be able to tell. But if you're like grimacing, yeah, probably not a true Kegel. That's an overcompensation is what we call it, okay? So they did a study. There was a 98% decrease in urinary incontinence with moderate coughs by using the knack. So just people having this education, 98% decrease in urinary incontinence by just doing the knack. So you get yourself throughout the day. And again, this is if you're having this issue, you just think about, okay, squeeze, and then sneeze, okay? No more panty liners, yes. Sit to stand, lifting your purse off the floor, lifting a case of water, grocery bags, you do the knack. You squeeze, and then you do your movement. You're gonna get up out of these chairs after this presentation, you're gonna squeeze, and then you're gonna get up, okay? And then also, I think, about 15 of you maybe came from the yoga class that was in here before, should be thinking about the knack during yoga and during those poses. You should be able to do that, okay? So on your guys' handout, I think some people may not have gotten, oh, you found some extras. So on the handout on the very bottom, so the top is just the boring stuff that we just went through, but on the bottom, it says weeks 1 and 2 in that left-hand column. This is where you start. And this is if you're thinking you have a weak pelvic floor. Most people do. That's the majority, okay? It's not like out in the gym out here, you're going and you're working out and you're doing your leg press and you're doing your leg extensions, you're doing your squats, you're in here doing your yoga. Nobody trains pelvic floor muscles, okay? So this is a very easy way to start. You don't need any equipment. So weeks 1 and 2, can I have one of those actually? Thanks. You want to start with 5-second contractions, 10-second rest. So to ease yourself into this exercise, you're going to do the squeeze, you're going to hold for 5 seconds, you're going to rest for 10 seconds. It's always an easier starting point to have longer rest periods than work periods, right? And that's true actually with any exercise that you do out there. If you're holding a plank and you're new to planks, you're on your knees and you're doing it, you hold for 5 seconds and you rest for 10 and then you go on. So yeah, and then obviously you want to do that 10 times, 5 sets of that per day. And this is a daily thing. Pelvic floor muscles are made up primarily of like endurance type muscle fibers, meaning this isn't just, it's a good mixture. I think it's 60-40 type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers, meaning some are like fast twitch. So like if you were to just like lift a bottle of water really quick, your bicep works mostly with fast twitch muscle fibers to make that happen quickly. But there's also about 40% of the muscle fibers are slow twitch, meaning endurance, like your neck stabilizers and your core muscles. Those are all slow twitch. So you need to incorporate both. And so this is the endurance component of this makes it important to do this every single day. Okay. That was a really long way to say all that. Yeah, that was like word vomit. Okay. So then you do that every single day, 2 to 3 weeks, and then you can progress to 10-second contractions with either match the rest or do a shorter rest, 5 to 10-second rest. And the same thing, now you're going down to 3 sets a day because you're increasing the workload, okay? And then you can do this in different positions. So start laying on your back. That's going to be the easiest. You can do this first thing in the morning when you wake up before you get out of bed. You can do it sitting. You guys can do it right now. You can do it walking, and then you can do it exercising. So that's the progression. You start lying down, you do it sitting, then you do it standing, and then you do it paired with movement, okay? Subtitle. That was on the template for PowerPoint, and I didn't delete it. So that's all that means. That was not supposed to be there. That entire column wasn't even supposed to be there, so let's move on. So let's all start this. Oh, this is going to be tough. I didn't envision us all being in chairs. How quickly do you think we can all get out of the chairs and get like a yoga mat or one of those blankets and set up a spot on the floor? An hour? Let's see if we can do it in 45 seconds. Sorry, I didn't even think about it, actually. Yes, you will not need chairs anymore. Do you want your chair also, or do you? Okay. Mom, she can do them with you. Charlie can do them with you. Yeah. She wants her ball. You gonna do it too? You want to do it up on the table? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. You should. Yes. All right, so Jackie's going to be the demo. On your back. So everyone's going to go on their back, knees bent. So this is called hook lying position, feet flat. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about the difference between activating your abdominal muscles and activating your pelvic floor. We all learned the elevator up and down or holding in a fart, right? So let's start with that. You're just going to do a 5-second hold your fart. Okay. Good. Okay. Mom, did you do it? I didn't hear any farts, so that's good. Toot. Okay, so then we want to be able to do that, and then we also want to be able to activate the deepest abdominal layer. Like I mentioned, you've got 4 layers of abdominals, so the deepest one's called transverse abdominis. So up here on the top, we're going to do a transverse abdominis isometric, meaning we're just going to contract the muscle and hold. So easiest cue for this one is you're sucking your belly button in towards your spine. So you're trying to bring your belly button down towards the floor. And it helps to kind of put your hands on your stomach. Yep. And feel that contract as you pull that belly button in. She's okay, Mom. She's sitting with the dog. Yeah. Okay. So you should also be able to do this isometric while breathing. You should not be holding your breath. I think that's like the one thing that most people like to do when they suck that belly button in is hold their breath. You should be able to have normal breathing pattern while doing this. So again, the first progression would be 5-second holds, 10-second rest. And this is really good to remind yourself that you can activate your abdominals separately from your pelvic floor muscles. So now we're going to progress to what's called a posterior pelvic tilt. So with this, you're thinking about if you're here, let me show on Jackie. So put your hands behind the small of your back, like the roundest part of your back. So a posterior pelvic tilt is trying to rotate your hips forward. Imagine if you were a rooster over here and you're scared and you're trying to tuck your tail between your legs. Yes, but the butt should not come off the floor. So you should feel your back flattened against your hands. Everybody watch out for Charlie. Okay. Can everyone feel that? Does anyone have difficulty with that? So like we mentioned early in the presentation, pelvic floor is responsible for that lumbopelvic motor control. So thanks, Mom. So important to be able to dissociate pelvic movement from low back movement from hip movement, right? So this posterior pelvic tilt is a very easy way to just move the pelvis, and you're actually sneakily activating your abdominal muscles while doing this. So you're just flattening your back against your hands, and you're rotating your hips forward, tucking your tail between your legs. Anyone have trouble with that? No? Good. Okay. So next, we are going to do bridges with the pelvic floor squeeze. So you're going to do the knack, right? Does everyone remember the knack? You're going to squeeze before you sneeze, but in this case, we're going to squeeze before we bridge, okay? So Jackie, squeeze, pelvic floor. I shouldn't see any muscles work. And now you're going to bridge. So hips up off the ground. You're squeezing your glutes together, and then you're slowly returning back down to the floor. So the question earlier about how do I know if I have weak hips? If you can't do a bridge, you might have weak hips. Good, everybody's bridging. Awesome. And so important to keep in mind that knack, right? Squeezing the pelvic floor muscles before you do the bridge. You can reset in between each bridge, and then slowly controlling it on the way back to the ground is important. And no holding your breath. General rule of thumb, you want to exhale as you do the work. So more work is being done by bridging your hips up, so you want your exhale to be on the way up and your inhale to be on the way down. Cool? All right. Next. Well, let me see. We're going to do another, yeah, we are. Let me see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12 balls. So what we might want to do is everybody partner up with one ball, and we're all going to sit on the exercise balls. Ball? You guys need a ball? Yep. Who needs a ball? Ball? Shoot, there's one more. One more. Does anybody need one more? Yeah, you're going to share. We're going to partner up. You need one? Here you go. So you can just demo on the table. Just sit on the facing everybody. Okay, so one person sitting on the ball. And we'll switch. Yep, sit on it. Nope, just sit on it. Yep. Good. So this ball kind of forces you all into good posture. If you didn't notice already, you're all sitting pretty nice and upright. So the transverse abdominis isometric that we did, squeezing the belly button towards the floor on your back, now you're going to do it while sitting on the ball. This is the progression. So 5-second holds. Everyone's going to do 2 of them. And you're breathing. You're not holding your breath, right? Belly button in. You should still be able to talk. You should still be able to breathe while that belly button is sucked in. Good. Okay. Now we're going to do pelvic tilts. So remember, tucking the tail between the legs like a dog. Now we're going to do it on the ball. And this is kind of nice because the ball moves underneath you. So it's just a really small movement. Very small. Good. Anybody having trouble with that? This is a hard one. It's weird. Holding it apart. Yeah. Oh, really? Like actually. This is good practice. So you're rotating your hips. So if you're here while sitting on the ball, you're trying to roll the hips forward. Very small movement. Yep. So that's anterior and that's posterior. Yeah, good. That's the one you want. Not that one. That one. Yeah, good. Okay. And then the last 2, and then we'll switch. So squeeze and march. So you're doing your pelvic floor squeeze. You're doing your elevator up. You're holding in the fart. You're breathing. Glutes are not activated. And now you're going to march in place No, sitting on the ball. Sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. I just didn't have a ball.
Wait, stay on the ball.
Elevator up, holding the fart, marching. Yeah, this is so good for core stability. And if you're doing it while holding that pelvic floor contraction, even better. But you should be able to play around with it, do it with just a pelvic floor contraction, and then do it with your transverse abdominis contraction and your pelvic floor contraction. Okay? There's always fun ways to progress this. Ooh, another ball. Oh, for the demo, nice. Yeah, go, yeah. 100%. Yes. Nice. So now, just everyone can do a pelvic floor contraction while doing it too, okay? Because now you have the tools and the cues. Okay, actually the last one we're all gonna do together at the very end. So let's switch partners.
Anyone else?
No?
No?
Okay. Someone gets to do it 2 times. Okay, so what was the first one? Oh yeah, belly button in, right? So you're sitting up nice and tall, you're sucking the belly button in, you're breathing. You should still be able to talk to your partner while that belly button is going towards your spine, right? And one thing I do not want to see though is like people doing this when they're trying to like suck that belly button in. So relax your shoulders, sit up tall, belly button towards your spine. 5-second holds, and then you relax. Okay? Super easy, right? The next one was the pelvic tilts. So if you're sitting up tall, now, and it's helpful too, should have mentioned before you guys switched, put your hands on your hips, and then you can feel them kind of roll. And you can even like kind of pull with your hands into that posterior pelvic tilt. It's a very small movement. Yep.
If people are struggling
Perfect.
with this, then what does that tell them?
That they have a tough time dissociating between lumbar spine and pelvic movement. So that could be a sign of weak pelvic floor muscles. All right, and then squeeze and marches. So you're doing your elevator up, hold in the fart, and then march, alternating. And it should be slow and controlled, not just flopping your feet down. Hip flexors, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Probably weak. Probably weak. Well, it happens too, especially with hip flexors, and this is going off on a bit of a tangent. Most of us sit most of the day. So hip flexors will just, by default, become tight or short. And short muscles equal weak muscles. Long muscles equal weak muscles. So it's good to like stretch those out and stand up more, lay on the floor more, do more yoga. Yeah. Cobra, that's a pose, right? That's a really good stretch for the hip flexors. What's the one where you're King Cobra? There you go. Yep. And then that's it. So now everybody stand. And hip, careful with this one. Okay. So we're going to squeeze and hop. That's what they're called. And we're literally just going to do that. So you're going to get your pelvic floor squeeze, hold in the fart, and you're just going to hop. And you're trying to keep that squeeze the entire time. You'll notice when you land, you kind of want to let it relax. Don't do that. You want to do the knack, right? Squeeze before you sneeze, squeeze before you hop.
And don't release
Until after you're landed, settled. And then you reset, re-squeeze, hop, and reset. Okay? So this is the progression, and this kind of gets you ready to start squeezing and walking, squeezing and sitting up from a chair. Okay? Any questions? No? Good. Right. But they will, it does. And they will, because they have to support you too. But you don't want to actively just squeeze the heck out of your glutes and then do it. You want to just squeeze. Elevator up, hop, elevator down. Good? Okay. Any questions? I think that was all, actually. Let me see. Yes, it was.
Well, if you signed a waiver,
Oh, yeah, we have a surprise for everybody.
you have been entered into our raffle here. We got 2 raffles going. One. Oops, sorry, you did your thing. I forgot already. And I don't know if I captured everybody. I think there's more people than what I have listed here. So, Susan F, Patricia F, Kelly S.
I think it's Patricia M, but yeah,
There's
that's okay.
2.
Oh, there's 2 Patricias? Okay.
Wendy, Michael, Bruce, Bobby, Lauren, David, Frank, Lynn, Julia, Susan, W, Paula, Aaron, Jim, Roberta, Jody, Kathleen. Did I not say your name? I didn't say your name or your name. What? Names, please. Ted.
Okay.
That one. Ted and
Jim.
Jim. I have Jim C on here. That's okay.
Patricia M. Is there a Patricia F also? Oh, okay, cool. All right. So we need Patricia M. Anybody else not get? Okay. Ruth Ann.
I just put Ruth. That's okay.
Ruth Ann. Yeah.
2 N's?
I wonder if we can stream.
Wait. This is not going where I want. She said dash.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the dash? Dash? Nope, that's an underscore. That's the same one.
Yeah. All right, so for everyone watching online and after the fact, we're going to stop the recording now. Thank you all for watching and tuning in, whether live or after the fact.